G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now this is where we got to in the last video. We'd put on the stay here, the preventer stay, which had therefore matched up with the main stay that I'd already put on previously. A whole lot of other stays have been put in. In fact, this thing is pretty well stayed together. Oh dear, bad dad joke. Now I've already put the ratlines on the mizzen mast here at the rear and the main mast here in the middle. And I've even done the upper ones as well. And I've started adding these little things here, footlocks. I was calling them footlocks, but I think they're actually pronounced footlocks. And they actually come down from the little dead-eye pulleys there, and they come into here. It's all part of rigging. It's all very pretty. All right, I've got more footlocks up here too. I'm yet to do my footlocks over here. Well, there's only going to be some down there. They're not too hard, only 3 lines. I might show you that in this video. Now what this video is mostly going to be about is using my Ratline tool. This is something I made myself, and it will let me do the rigging, or do the ratlines, in there, just like that. It's custom made to fit exactly. Now I've used a couple of different methods to do my ratlines. I've used my tool at the back here, and I managed to do those. They work rather well. And I found that a very easy method. So on the main mast here, I actually used the Ratline tool. And, well, I did them all on the Ratline tool, but I used the ones I cut off. They were like this, and then I cut them free. And the beauty is, at least when they're made on the tool, I had enough excess waste here at the bottom of cotton that allowed me to thread through holes that I drilled in the dead eyes there and tighten this thing up. And it worked reasonably well. Disadvantage using the Ratline loom are twofold in that, one, you're going to have to cut each piece off. You'll have to have a separate on each side. You'll have to have, this little floppy piece, and it is floppy. It's quite difficult to work with. You'll have only as much tying area as you've left over at the bottom here. And some of the ones I made later on, I didn't leave enough. I ran the Ratline too close to the edge of the loom. So you need quite a bit of cotton there so that you can actually do something and tie it off. And your other problem is tying up here into the fighting platform, trying to get your tie point there. And again, unless you've left enough cotton here, I mean, it's almost worth double winding round through there, I think, if you're going to use this tool, so that when you kind of cut away, if you can figure out which threads to cut, you've got a bit of extra cotton to run through it and tie onto the mast head there, or the mast top. It's difficult. If you just cut them flush and just super glue the ends in, that's probably the easiest method. And I did that with the upper ones here. I just simply super glued them at the back, and that was a lot easier. Because actually trying to run them through the little holes in the dead eyes and tension them proves to be a problem, and that is your issue. So using the Ratline loom, it's convenient and it's fairly easy to create them, although probably creating one at a time, doing it that way, as really instructions say, we actually create a pair, butterfly pair, is probably better than me being smart ass and trying to create them all at once on one loom sideways, which I did manage to do, but they proved not to be as useful. It's certainly much more useful if you go this way, because then you're going to have the excess thread to tie off on, at least at the bottom where the dead eyes are. So it's not bad. Obviously, the easiest method is, like when I made the short ones, is to simply take the whole thing, cut it absolutely to the size you want, super glue it in, and you're done. Okay, so those ones were just sort of, well, that one wasn't. That was actually done with my Ratline tool. So the loom has advantages and disadvantages. Now, what I wanted to do was use the advantages of the loom, but get rid of the disadvantages. So the biggest disadvantage I found was getting the shrouds tight and getting them in the correct alignment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie my shrouds on here with using no tool, just simply tying them on the model and doing them correctly. And then my Ratline tool goes actually in behind here, and then allows me to actually run all the horizontal ratlines and glue them in place. A bit tricky there now because I've got too much bloody rigging in the way. But when that goes in there, we'll see shortly, this tool allows the advantage of having the horizontal ratlines in without needing to knot them and glue them on, but none of the disadvantage of your shrouds all being fixed in and then got to somehow figure out a way to tie them to the model. So let me show you exactly how that works. Now I'm going to use the kit supplied cotton thread, which is about a 0.15mm diameter. You probably could go a little wider with shrouds because they actually are quite a thick line. But I'd started with this and I'll just continue with it for now. Anyhow, the next up size I've got is this brown one I'd used here on the Preventer Stay. It probably would have been better, but I would have to dye them all black because I really like my Ratlines to all look black. So we'll go with this for this one. Okay. First of all, you're going to need to do your shrouds in pairs because they actually tie from the deadeye up around the mast, which is in the fighting platform there, and they come back down and they tie to the next deadeye. The last one, I'm actually going to cheat because there's no pair for it. So I'm going to run it up and over through the fighting platform with the back of the mast, and I'll run it down to the other side. So again, it can be tied as a pair, but it'll be a pair off the front deadeye. Bit of cheating. Strictly speaking, they should all be on one side, but we'll do that for this model. All right, so because I'm going to need a pair, I'm needing to measure out twice the distance and then allow a bit for tying for my my cotton thread. All right, I've cut off a length that is twice that distance plus a bit more, and what I need to do now is defur. And you can see that, see how furry my end cut is. It's absolutely horrible. So I'll need to make sure that's cut clean. That's a bit cleaner. And then I'm going to basically dip it in some white wood glue I've got here on this very fetching looking container. And then I'll just run my fingers around that until it defurs. And I can even see some furry pieces there I need to cut off. Now I have my cotton on my curved tweezers, which I find is a bit easy for this, lets me get in nice and close. And I find it's easier to thread with the tweezers than it is to try and thread with your fingers. That's just me. Yeah, your experience may differ. So I'm able to get that through the deadeye there. And then I need to tie that one off. That's why I've left myself plenty of excess. And remember, it's going to go this way, so tie it off at the top here. Okay. Then to secure that little knot, I'll just need a tiny bit of glue. There we go. We'll just let that set a bit. Using two tweezers now, I need to get that shroud up and into that fighting platform. So there it is there. And I can release it from that one. And it'll need to go around the back. I'm not pulling it too tight at this stage, I don't need a lot of tension. Okay, and then it's going to go through that hole in the middle. It always ties to the back one. When you've got a pair of these together, as the mast extends as it goes up, always tie to the back one. Okay, and then back down through the hole. Of the fighting platform. Right. And we'll also you'll need to loop it at this point to get it to actually fan up to a point. If you don't do that, when you bring it back down, it'll be too wide at the top That looks wrong. And anyhow, that's strictly correct. They should be looped like that. All right, so that one's correct. Now that we've tied it off at the top there in the masthead, we now basically thread a little bugger through here. Yep. It's fiddly work, but it is rewarding. And this is actually easy than trying to thread them when they're already in a rat eye loom. It's a lot harder trying to thread things through. You've got very little purchase because you've got all the bloody horizontal rat lines in the way. And believe me, it's not as easy to do this. You are better off just cutting them and super gluing them on and go bugger it. This way we're going to get the right tension on every line. It's going to look so much better. Believe you me. Okay, we're just about there. And remembering they need to knot at the top. Strictly speaking, these shrouds would actually run around. They would run around the dead eyes. But of course, the only way to do that is completely throw away all these plastic pieces and get some nice wooden dead eyes and run them around, which is like what I showed in the previous video where we ran the cord around. And we probably work with slightly larger ones. So for the moment, that's working. That's tight enough. Let's put some glue on that, because we need to seal that off. So just tiny dollop there, and doesn't hurt to give that one a bit more as well. Give it another little pull. Another little pull. There we go, that's tight enough. And then I cut away just a bit, leaving about 1 centimetre, so 1/3 of an inch, so that I've got a little bit there if I need to retighten that or reset it. So that's one pair. All right, so it's a little fiddly, but it's a lot easier when you're not trying to do it sideways with an iPad. Believe me, if you're just leaning over the model and looking in, you won't find it that hard. I found them quite relaxing to do when I did the back ones on my mise en mast. So we've got another pair to do there, and then a pair to run over there, and then 2 pairs on the other side. So I'll do that now. I'll get all of my shrouds in, and then we can apply the Ratline tool, my little custom-made tool, and we can actually add those horizontal rat lines. All those shrouds are tied, glued, and they're set, and I've trimmed off all the excess. So they're all tensioned nicely now, and that's looking really good. What we've got to do now is get the horizontal rat lines in, okay? And I'm going to use the tan cord that's actually supplied in the kit. It's perfect for my use here. So this is where my little device that I invented, this little tool, comes into use. And it's as simple as this. I simply slide it in behind the shrouds and poke it up into the fighting platform, and there we go. That's how it would look. Okay. Now I built my Ratline tool with slightly deeper grooves every 5 rungs on the side here. This is where we're going to run the rungs across. And these are all spaced evenly and horizontally so that your rat lines will end up correct. Okay, so to position this, you just get the edge against your front one and run it down the edge to the front one here. And then whatever excess spills out the back, and that'll be fine. That'll give you your level line. So your rat lines will run across like that, and they will match exactly. Alright, so if my fat hand's not in the way, so they will run like so. And that will be correct. What we need to do is figure out how many we need, because we're not going to put the actual tan cord on while it's in place. You could, but that'd be probably pretty fiddly, and what we're trying to avoid here is fiddly things. Trying to make this simple and easy. So what my method is, we work out how many rungs we're going to need. Well, we're going to need basically, you'll need the top one, yep. You need all the way down 15, 20, okay, because each one of these is 5, 10, 15, 20. So at 20, that seems to be as far as this wants to go down. So I know that's the last one I'll need to do. It was different when I did other rat lines here, and if I did the main mast, I'd need a lot more. It's slightly taller. Okay, so that simply pops out. Now, you could hold this in place with a little peg or something. So far, I've been lucky that it's kind of friction fitted wherever I've put it. But just in case it was kind of wobbly, you just find something to basically hold it with, or you could put a clamp below. But anyhow, let me show you what happens once we put the cord on the Ratline tool. Now to rig this tool, it's really easy. It is. We'll start at the top, and the top has got a hole conveniently positioned there. And just basically tie off there as my starting point. Nothing fancy, just a couple of very simple reefy type knots. Okay, that was the hard bit. Now, bring myself out a bit of length to work with. I simply wind as per the notches, because the notches tell me what to do. So, here's my first one, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. I notice they're wider. 6, 7, you can count how many, 8, 9, and this, believe me, is easier than using the loom. Just keep a tension on it. I found that's the trick. Make sure it's in the slots. Okay, that's to the position 20. Alright, that's where we measured it to. 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's as far as I need to go. So with my last one, I'll just tie that off down the bottom. So I'll just run it. You could diagonally tie it, but that might foul them with putting it basically where you need to put it. So I find you go to diagonally to the last one down here, and then keeping the tension, just run your line into that hole. Oh, it's gone all furry, has it? It's gone all furry. And we'll just cut that. Now you go through your little bugger. Yes, there we go. Okay, through. And at this point it's good to check that you've got all the grooves. It hasn't sort of looped across. On the back it'll be diagonal. You don't want that. So just remember you're only going to use one side. That is all waste. And it seems like a shame, but actually you waste a lot more when you do one of these. You waste a ton of thread because you're wasting thread everywhere. Okay, this weighs probably half, if not less. Now, if you've been watching closely, you would have noticed I'd actually rigged this back to front, the Ratline tool. That's okay. I've made that side, not the side that I was first planning to do. And you've got to watch that, because you've got to have on the side you're going to put it on, the big holes, the big grooves must match up. But that's okay. I'll do this side first. Not a problem at all. So now we'll squeeze this in here. If it worked on the starboard side, it should work. Well, if it worked on the port side, it should work on the starboard side. Okay. Now, you'll notice it pushes and distorts things a bit. It's exactly what you want. These frets are actually pushing the shrouds out, and I want it to do that. There's a very good reason for that. Just got to watch the separation of some of these lines. It's okay, there we go. Now, to get it tense so that basically the Ratline itself is pushing up hard, it's got these little frets on the side here, push the whole thing out. Okay, so just got to make sure that's where you really need your arms or your legs behind there. When you do that, it does sit just right. All right, so they're all in there. You can see it's already formed itself and it's holding nice and tight. And all the way up, my frets are pushing. They're pushing nicely to get them in place. So you just got to jig it a bit until you go, yep, that's it. That's looking correct. That's got my line. So there's my first line there. That's correct. All right. Now, all we've got to do is set that in place. And this is so easy. So easy. So, we need some white glue. And we're going to need a brand new toothpick. Nice and clean. Nice and pointy. All right, so my white glue I'm going to put just off camera here into a little receptacle. And then with my toothpick, I'm just going to dollop it in. And then here's the magic. We just go dot, 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 dot. Now they look too big, these little dots of glue, but they will, just like if you watch the video on doing the loom, they will disappear. And what you end up with is just little tiny little blobs basically on every joint, and they almost look like knots. If you've seen some of the other Ratlines, that's it. And this was basically the same method I used when I did the looming. Hardest ones are top here. I should have done some down here where you can really see what's going on. See? Going in diagonally. That's why you need a brand new toothpick with a nice fine point. And they will, the capillary action of this white glue will go all the way around and join on. And this tool, with its frets that push the ratlines up against the shrouds, means everything's holding together. And luckily, at least for this model, my legs fit exactly around the baseboards there for the shrouds where the channeling is. And everything's just holding in place. So I'm just, I just sit back, stick the little bits on, and away I go. I mean, I'm pretty chuffed with my tool, I must say. It took a bit of thinking, it took a couple of prototypes, but then since I've been using it, I've been so happy with it. All right, I'll go put my little glue dots on, and we'll come back when they're dry. Glue is nearly set on this side, and I've already cut away the other side. So I've worked ahead so we can see the final result. And the cutting away procedure for the harp tool is very easy as well. In fact, the glue only needs to be really tacky and you can get away with it. But I've waited until the glue's fully set here. So starting at the bottom, pressing up against the shroud and just snap. Now you must do both sides, assuming you can get the bloody thing in there. I'll cut it there. The reason you do that is tension starts. See, tension's going already. So the last thing was a big floppy bloody Ratline business. So just working your way up. Doesn't take that long. There we go. Oh, there's one down the bottom here still that I haven't taken off. Couldn't get to it before. Right, there we go. So that's how I use my little Rat Harp tool. And for me, it's a simple solution for doing the rat lines on this kit. And that tool specifically fits this kit. So, you know, I could use it on anything that's about this size. Not necessarily this scale, because there's some other ships like Batavia that are actually a larger ship, but a slightly smaller scale. And I think this tool would still fit. And I can check that. I'll run that up against that kit when I build it. See if I need to modify this at all or make another one. But that works for the Bounty, and I managed to get basically most of my rat lines done that way. Some I did use the Hella tool, the Hella Airfix tool, and that's pretty good too. There's nothing wrong with that. The attaching method I'm not as happy with. I think it's a lot more fiddly and a lot more fraught to, you know, not quite getting them straight. I mean, here I know every one of my shrouds is exactly positioned correctly, and I'm very happy about that. Whereas when it comes off the loom, you've really got to be careful about how you tie it then onto the model. So horses for courses, apples and oranges, both of them work, both of them are a solution. I particularly like my Ratline tool. All right, well, that's it for this video. That's basically just about most of the standing rigging done. I've only got a couple of little footlocks to do here, or footlocks. I keep calling them footlocks. This little arrangement here, they won't take me long. I'll knock those off, and the next video we'll start on rigging the sails. Yes, they all need finishing and they all need rigging, and there's quite a lot to do. That's the running rigging. That'll be next time, but that's it for now. It's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.